Having therefore an entire confidence that his said Highness, the Prince of Orange, will perfect the deliverance so far advanced by him, and will preserve them from the violation of their rights which they have asserted here, and from all other attempts upon their religion, rights, and liberties, the said lords, spiritual and temporal and commons, assembled at Westminster, do resolve that William and Mary, Prince and Princess of Orange, be and be declared King and Queen of England, France, Ireland, and the dominions thereunto belonging. This is what was declared at the Convention of Westminster in 1689, after what we know as the Glorious Revolution. So what led to the Glorious Revolution? Well, after the English Reformation in the 1500s happened, because this guy loved divorce, England, after a few bumps in the road, of course, eventually became majority Protestant. And then there were certain laws passed that discriminated against Catholics. The Test Act of 1673, for example, made it to where Catholics couldn't hold public office. There are, of course, other examples of this, and I'll flash them on the screen right now. But the main thing to take away from this is England had a bit of a fear of Catholics. But Charles II, who was ruling England from 1660 to 1685, took it upon himself to convert to Catholicism right before he died. So his brother, James II, who was already a Catholic, which is not good in the eyes of the mostly Protestant England, took on the throne and became King James II. When King James took the throne, he said, "I will respect the current religious institutions of England." And everyone said, "Huzzah!" This was just a prank, however. James II wanted there to be tolerance for Catholics, but his end goal was to make Catholicism the main religion in England. And after saying exactly what Parliament wanted to hear, they granted him money for life, which was the first step to gaining absolute authority. He also started getting really buddy-buddy with a fairly unlikable character in Europe at the time, the Catholic King Louis XIV of France, who enjoyed the absolute power that King James craved. James, for some time, enjoyed Tory support in Parliament, as they believed in the divine right of kings, meaning the king should not be opposed because he's closer to God and doing God's will. This support from the Tories eventually fragmented when James II raised a standing army of around 30,000 that were under his direct command and filled it up with Irish Catholics. He also started placing Catholics in various important offices, but the main thing was that he had a son in 1688. Many people believed at this time that when James II eventually died, that his daughter Mary would come back from Holland and take the throne, as he had no other offspring, which was preferable because Mary and her husband William were Protestant. The Tory party fractured because of these new revelations. Many began to work with the Whigs, and the more radical of the Tories later subscribed to Jacobite and became Jacobites. Eventually, a letter was sent to William of Orange, asking him to come invade and beat up their king, and that everyone will love him for it. This was good politically for William, as King Louis XIV was growing increasingly hostile towards the Dutch, and having England on their side would naturally help him out. So the plan went into effect, and William set off for England, landing in Brixham with his soldiers, and was greeted by many English Protestants, and kind of just walked freely to London. He was undefeated, but there were really no battles. James fled to France to see his buddy, King Louis XIV, which gave Tories who believe in divine right an argument that James II gave up the throne, and it wasn't taken away, meaning they could place another monarch on the throne, though they would have preferred Mary over William because of the blood connection to James II. A convention was set up to declare William king and Mary queen magistrate by both Tory and Whig parties, which had put away their normal political animosity towards each other at this time of crisis and uncertainty. The convention was held in Westminster and set up in many ways the modern form of constitutional monarchy government the United Kingdom has today. At this convention, they gave a list of demands to the new king and queen, such as elections of parliament be free and freedom of speech, also that raising a standing army in times of peace be illegal without the consent of parliament. Here are the rest. William and Mary accepted these demands and signed the English Bill of Rights. This ushered in a new era of English history, where an elected parliament was now the center of power. This, in some ways, made them more powerful than before, as they were more willing to keep a standing army without the fear that the soldiers would side with the king, as their funds came directly from Parliament. And this was good for everyone. It's a black and white issue, because nothing ever bad came from England becoming the world's superpower, and everyone sang Kumbaya.